Welcome back to another episode of the Eating Experience. We are so glad that you decided to join us today. Please grab your family, call a girlfriend, and invite them to tune in for this another amazing episode that we have for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sit back, again, grab that family, your friend, and stay tuned. Let's get back to the basics. Welcome back. We've been on this ride about forgiveness for the last couple of weeks, and we have more. You know, it's Thanksgiving season, and you know you have your friends and your families that's there with you, and we're gonna dig into some more about forgiveness. You know, what do we do when we're constantly feeling the hurt? You know, when that pain is still there, and you know, is it okay to not be okay?
I think that's huge, especially in today's culture. You know, we always trying to wear this mask, saying that didn't really bother me, or you know, I'm cool and I'm okay. But feeling that pain, you know, I think is first of all, a huge part in your journey to forgive somebody, and your journey to get beyond and past where you currently are. Is to feel that pain, then to understand that it's okay. Not being okay.
Yeah.
For a period of time, right?
Right.
That's kind of part of the whole process.
Part of the process, right?
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of, you know, going through the grieving process. You know, we tend to put a time frame on grieving, but there truly isn't a time frame on grieving. You know, you have to go through that process. It's a step by step, and that's what experiencing the hurt and going through that process with the hurt or not being okay. It's taking you through those steps of grieving. It's taking you through the process of dealing with and accepting and acknowledging that yes, I've been hurt. This hurt is deep. This hurt cuts deep. So now I need to go through that process, and it helps us to be healed and whole.
Absolutely, and specifically, I think I want to just take a time to speak to the men in general, because we grow up saying, you know, you don't cry, men don't cry, or that shouldn't hurt. We have to put on this mask that everything is okay and everything is good when it's not. It's okay to not be okay. It's not a form of weakness. That's what we've been taught. You know, you weak if you cry. You weak if you know you let such and such bother you. So things that trigger things in us and have pain in us, you know, we've been taught to mask, to really put it under the ground, right? That it doesn't exist, and that is far from the truth of the matter. You know, we need to. It is okay for us as men to not be okay. It's not a form of weakness. As a matter of fact, you guys want us to be more open and more vulnerable, emotional with you guys, and really letting that wall down, right? I think that's huge for men in general. You know, that it is okay. We do get hurt. We do feel pain. And a lot of times we don't know how to express it, what outlet it comes from. That's when we get, you know, you get into the domestic issues and all these type of negative ways to express that hurt and express that pain. But find some healthy ways to express it. It is okay to not be okay.
Right.
You know?
You're absolutely correct. It is okay to not be okay. I know, you know, just myself dealing with, you know, some deep hurt issues. I actually had to go through the process, and going through that process, you know, you have people that say, well, you know, you should be over that. Well, no, you can't tell me. You're not in this. You're not in my shoes. You're not walking this out. So let me and God, you know, walk this out together.
And I'll add one more to that. Me, God, and his counselor.
Yeah. Yes.
That is such a taboo thing, you know, going to
Especially
counseling.
for, you know,
especially for
our-
African American community,
yes.
you know, Black folk, you know, that's all like, I mean, it's a big thing. Like, we don't go to counselors. Like, I don't need nobody, you know, going in my head and trying to figure out what's going on. Yes, you do. Like, we are here, we are relational and social people.
Yes.
We need that help. I mean, they've been trained in that, so why wouldn't you go? So I definitely want to shut down that stigma. If it's a pain that you can't, right, just get through, that you're hurt that you can't just overcome, it may be time to go get some counseling for it.
Right. It may be time to go get some counseling. And if you looking for someone, you know, reach out. Reach out to us. And if we're not the ones to, you know, help you with that, we can actually point you in the direction of some wonderful counselors that we know. I do know another episode you talked about your father and dealing with, you know, forgiveness with that. You want to like share a little bit more about that?
Well, I mean, I grew up, you know, he was around but not around from where I was, and I took that as he didn't want me, right? He didn't accept me. I think one of the biggest unfortunate issues, or what can I say? Not an issue, but the biggest unfortunate
challenge, maybe?
Comfort to that was that I wasn't the only one. You know, my friends all were in the same boat, but I began to harbor those issues, those serious anger issues and serious pain issues. You know what I'm saying? But I'm okay, I'm cool. You know, I got my mom, I don't need my dad, blah blah blah. And that's furthest thing from the truth. And it was like, you know, as a strong Black woman, she would say, "I can do it all. I can push through, and I can make it happen." But honestly, there's some things that I missed growing up, you know, not having a father, because there's only some things that a man can teach a young boy.
Right, but going through that process of saying you're okay, but you're not really okay, you know, or even just accepting the hurt. How long did it take you to really accept that hurt?
Man, how old am I now? 41. So it took, I think the first, I was in my 30s. That's 30-something years of harboring and holding on to that, that pain, you know, that unresolved issue, the unresolved anger. Yeah, I think I was like 35, maybe 36, before I actually was actually free of that and actually was able to forgive him. I talked about, you know, having the compassion for him. Yeah, but that process took that many years.
Yeah, and what did that process look like? You know, and I know this is a women's network, but you know, women have husbands, and husbands experience hurt, but we can take some of that and apply it to ourselves as well.
I mean, for me, it was rage initially. All through growing up, you know, I had self-esteem issues, feelings of not being wanted, not being good enough, having to perform, you know, to be accepted. And I did that, you know, for the first 20-something years of my life, probably into my early 30s, I went through that. So that was the initial stages for sure. And then it took really God and time to bring me to another space.
I have another question for you, but I think I'm gonna pause and let's take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So before the break, you know, we were talking to Stephen about what he experienced in his life, you know, the pain and the hurt of unforgiveness, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, now you say that, yeah.
Yeah, and you was talking about like the rage, things that you felt.
Yeah, I remember probably one of the biggest, I remember this pretty significantly. I was in college, and I was homeless. We got kicked out of the dorms because I was a junior. Not necessarily homeless, but I was homeless. I didn't have no place to go.
You was living in your car.
Yeah, I was
Technically,
living in
you
my
were
car.
homeless.
I was living in my car, and I made a phone call to my father and asked him, you know, hey, I'm trying to get this apartment. You know, it's $250 or whatever. And his response was, you know, you're getting child support. You know, what's your mama? That was the key. He said, what's your mama doing with the child support? And that was it. It was. I know I said earlier, I never really experienced any anger. That day,
was the moment.
Man, I had never felt that upset, but it was more hurt. It was more hurt that I'm the only son, and you can't find it in your heart to find a way to help me. I'm homeless. I mean, I have no place to live. And so that hurt, and I was irate. I think I used every cuss word and made some up on that phone, and I slammed it down, and I didn't talk to him again for about 10 years after that. But it was still unresolved. You know, it was still a lot of pain. Even when we got married, that was one of the biggest things that you said.
Right.
You know, it was like, you want my relationship with my dad, Greg, and I should say, screw it.
Right,
You know,
because I thought it was big because
Yep.
we knew that we were going to get married and we knew we were going to have children, and I felt like, you know, they need to know that side of their family.
Yep. And at that time, you know, 18 years ago, I was like, screw that dude. Nope.
And that's exactly what he said.
And I said it in a different
that
way,
dude.
but that's what I said. But, you know, and then it came to a point where as I'm growing in my relationship with Christ, you know, and learning more about him, learning more about me, that forgiveness thing began to stick out. And when I understood how much I'd done, you know what I'm saying, in relation to my father and how he responded to me, and then when I realized that he is our father and that my father was also his son and he is his father.
Yeah.
And I realized how I operated, right? And then it just changed my perspective. It totally changed everything, understanding and seeing it from that perspective where it wasn't necessarily about me. Even though I was affected, right, and I was hurt, it just wasn't about me.
Right, so that actually takes us into, you know, our next thing, like, so if the offender is unapologetic, so your father was not apologetic,
No.
like who is forgiveness for?
Yeah, right. It was for me, because I held it against him. I mean, I held it. Like, and you can see. I mean, you can attest to, you know, the way I used to think. Whenever you bring up his name or bring up who he is,
or when he called.
Oh man,
It was tough.
Yeah,
That
you
was
know, when he did start finally calling, which was, I don't know, we would have been married for quite a while before he even did start calling again. Yeah, it was for me, you know, because I held that against him. I always tried to live up to being better father than what he was.
Yeah.
And if you really think about it, that's a pretty low standard.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
because
saying?
our Heavenly
So
Father.
we got a Heavenly Father,
Yes.
you know, who
Yes.
shows us the unconditional love, who shows us what it's like. And so that, in order to forgive him and to be free in my own self, I had to forgive him for that. And when I saw it from a different perspective, you know, when we take off these lenses, right, these my lenses, what I see, and see it from the kingdom perspective and from the big picture, it's not just about me. That even knowing our parents, which if you notice a lot of the issues that we talk about or people have, they're attributing back to their parents.
Yes.
But then here's a picture for you guys. The average parent on an average day is what, 21, 23 years old. Think about
25.
where you were when you was 21 and 23 years old. We didn't know nothing,
Right.
right? They doing the best they can.
Probably fresh out of college.
Fresh,
They
right?
chose to go
if
to
they
college.
go to college or working, they don't know what's going on. You know, they trying to figure it out just like we was trying to figure it out. You see, when you see it from that perspective, it changes how it's my fault. It's their fault.
Exactly, it's their fault.
Right. They
Right.
maybe been doing the best they can, or maybe not doing the best they can, but you got to understand their mindset and where they were during that time versus same thing with us.
Yes.
And so when you see it from me at 21, at 22, trying to raise children, then it gives a totally different light, totally different perspective on the hurt, right?
Right.
It may have been intentional, may have been unintentional, but it was there. You acknowledge that. I'm saying it was okay. You know, said the pain was there. The pain was the pain. You know, it was definitely there. But when I was still talking about trying to be free of it and to reconcile that, right? To be reconciled again was when I realized that's what God wanted for me, and I was a minister of that. Then I had to forgive in order to make that next step to bring back that relationship.
Right.
Which is still not perfect.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's still not perfect today. I mean, we talk about today, it's still not perfect. You know,
Absolutely.
Those phone calls with him are still.
But that's part of the process.
Interesting. Yes.
That's part of going through that process of healing, basically.
Yeah.
Because that's what it does when you are talking to that person that offended you or that person who have caused that hurt. That's part of that process or that healing process in that. And like you said, it's been 20-something years, and he's still healing from that. So, who is forgiveness for? You know, he said that was for him. And he's right. Forgiveness is for us. It's not for the person who offended us or the person who caused that harm to us. It is for us. It frees us. It frees us from the hurt. It frees us from that pain that we're having to deal with. You agree?
I totally agree. I don't deal with the same emotions anymore towards him. It's like I see him as somebody who was hurt too, who was hurting too.
All right, that's perspective change.
Yeah, I see it different. It really changed everything for me. You know, I know he still has issues. He's still dealing with some things, and I respect that where he is. But for me, I can now see it differently. My perspective is different, and I'm able to be free from those things that I used to feel.
All right.
For sure.
Good.
That's me.
I'm glad you let that go.
Me too.
I am.
Me too.
All right, guys. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. So we just finished talking about, you know, what does forgiveness, you know, look like, or who is it for, right? And we know that forgiveness is for us. But what about maybe setting up some parameters around like forgiveness, or what do we expect from forgiveness?
I think that process is what it is. We talked about a couple of times that forgiveness was a process and that it took time. And like you said, you compared it to grieving.
Yes.
Right? And so that process will take time, but while you're walking through that process, I believe there should be some structure as you're walking through it, right? To help you get through it from that pain. Like I said, I can talk about my experience. You know, to get through that healing process over those few years, once God kind of showed me, hey, this is it, and then to get to the next point where, you know, I can have a conversation with them. So there had to be something lined up, some parameters set up. And I did set some up, you know. It's definitely a line that I wouldn't cross. What I expected, right, was something that I had to deal with, right? I can't expect him or us to be, you know, on the same page, understanding the same things at the same time, all the same time. That's an unrealistic expectation.
Right. Well, one, because I mean, your life standards are different.
Yep.
So that was one big challenge of, you know, that you have to do to set those parameters, because your life experience with your father is totally different.
Absolutely.
And where he is in life is not where you are.
Right. Absolutely. And so being realistic about what to expect as you walk forward, right? And how far, while reconciliation is the goal, you know, like 100%, you know, true reconciliation, what are those steps to get there, right? How far do we go? How far can we go? What do I allow? Because there's things that he may do that still may hurt me, right? If I'm getting a phone call and he's inebriated, you know, that can still affect me, right? And so I'm like, you know what? Call me back.
Yeah, and do you think that affects you because at one point that was the only time he called you.
Absolutely.
That was the only time he reached out to call.
Absolutely. And so, having that boundary there, when I hear it, it's like, okay, good to talk to you. I'll call you back soon. Right. So that's something that's set up to protect me.
Yes.
And protect my peace, and to hold that boundary there as we walk through this process, right, to get there. I do believe that one day we'll get there. So I continue to press forward, because I am the one who's trying to be the minister of reconciliation, as God's called us to be. So I won't stick to it, but there are parameters that I think need to be set as you walk through that process.
Right. And even when we walk through that process with other loved ones, or even our circle, of those who may have offended us, it may look a little different, right? You may, at this time, I would not maybe go out with you or go have dinner with you, this time, or may not go to this lounge, with you, because, we're just not in that place.
Right.
Would those do you think those would be like good boundaries to set? Yeah,
and if you're working through it, then yeah. You set these boundaries before, with your circle and with your friends. So it's something you do. You at a place, and then offense happens, or pain happens, or hurt happens. While the goal is still to get back to that place, it's going to take time to get to that place. So before we get to that place, it's going to be some things that change as we are moving toward that place, right?
Right.
So yeah, I may not go out. You may not come over to the house all the time like you used to, or we may not, but it's not permanent. That's the key. It's not a permanent shutdown, but as we walk through the process, and get back to where we are, then, especially if that person's on the same page, if they're not, it's a totally different story, I think, but if they're on the same page, then yeah, that process is going to take that time, and it should be respected among both parties.
The biggest challenge for me is, when I've set those boundaries for my circle, and I end up applying them to everybody because I'm hurt. So I want to protect myself from allowing somebody else to hurt me. So instead of me just setting those boundaries for that person that offended me, I end up setting it for everybody. And sometimes I feel like it's fair, but it's not fair to the others, right?
So, we've had that conversation many a times, and this person didn't do that, so why would you, hold yourself back from what this person done because that person done that? And I know we do that a lot, right? So because we got hurt in this space here, we then believe that everybody's going to hurt us.
Everybody.
So therefore we block everybody out from getting to really know us. And I always say that's really unfair, because you may be missing out on that person who has no intentions to hurt you, right? But we are so prone to not wanting to be hurt, that we just put up walls and shut things down, and then we have our perspective changes, that because we were hurt at that one time, or because we were hurt in that one situation, that now your whole outlook on everything changes from that one experience, which is unfair.
Right. I know for me, and I'm guilty. I'm guilty of doing that. Someone hurts me, everybody in my circle, they have to be under those same boundaries, because I don't want to experience the hurt. But like you said, it's not fair. It's not fair to them, but that goes also back to how we hold everybody to this standard of, you're not gonna hurt me, or they can't hurt me, or they should not hurt me. And everybody's entitled of hurting somebody.
They have,
because we're human. We make mistakes.
We're imperfect.
We are imperfect.
And that's the thing. The only person that you can for surely know that will never hurt you is God Himself.
Right.
That's it.
Exactly.
That's why I say, we talked about it other times, expect it. I expect it. Not that you walking out intentionally saying, let me go see how I can hurt you.
Right.
Like, that's not your, but understanding that it's going to happen.
Yes.
And not putting you on a pedestal so high that, it can never happen. If it does happen, off with your head.
Right. I have work to do.
So do I.
And I believe you do too. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. just finished wrapping up our episodes on forgiveness. We hope we said something to you or shared something with you that will allow you to have those necessary conversations. Reach out to your loved ones, reach out to those friends, ask for forgiveness, or just reach out and forgive, and connect with us. We will love for you to share your stories with us. We would love to hear from you. So reach out at our website at ShanaviaPortis.com. And until next time, let's get back to the basics.